back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and in this video I'm excited to be unboxing the second edition of Machina Arcana. If you haven't ever seen the first edition before, you won't have too much to go off here. This will be the first time you're seeing anything to do with this particular game on the channel, as I wasn't able to check out the first printing of this game, but it has been around for some time, and this comes from a more recent Kickstarter. Really excited to dive into this. I'm going to flip it over right now, show you what's on the back of the box, and then we're going to dive inside. The game asks you, have you ever been frightened into paradise? In Machina Arcana, players take on the role of explorers thrown into dreadful hulls, stretching for survival and progressing through the chapters from one of many horror stories. Even if they manage to stay alive until the end of the story, they will face a special minigame at the finale for each scenario. The unique environment, interactive inventory, combat mechanics, and tactical diversity are all enveloped in this integral storytelling experience that provides both total immersion in the world and full replay value. But beware, a horde of unique and terrifying monsters are bent on destroying your party. If that isn't enough, horror itself disrupts and hinders any remaining hope in these comfortless chambers. The game states right on it that it's a cooperative steampunk horror adventure, which sits itself quite nicely for solo play, so if that is up your alley, you're probably already intrigued. When you first open up the box, you'll be greeted with the game manual. You'll note right on the manual it says 2.0 if you've got the second edition. You'll also be able to see some of the artwork involved. This is an overview of a round, explorer phase, spawn phase, horror phase, monster phase, how to win the game and how to lose the game. If the scenario has an endgame, players must achieve its victory condition. If the scenario doesn't have an endgame, players must resolve the chapter with the victory effect. Surviving explorers share the victory, and the dead stay in the darkness forever. That's how you win the game. How you lose is if the explorer death is permanent, which means when the last explorer has died, the game is lost. If players reach endgame and the defeat condition is met, the game is lost. Pretty straightforward. So there'll be lots of changing conditions throughout this adventure. Here is a component overview of everything you can find inside the box to ensure you have everything. And then we start moving into more depth on the component overview and talking about item cards, event cards, player boards, chapter cards, the map tiles themselves, the character boards, and all that, as well as some nice iconography in terms of denoting what each of these different things are on all of the tiles. Going to help you out with that quite nicely. We'll skip right here to game setup. It looks like there are a total of 26 steps for game setup. And this is roughly what you can expect in terms of the layout inside the rulebook. You'll see here there's some sections where there's some important information in terms of variants for shorter games, easier games, or effects like spawning monsters or increasing the monster threat. But otherwise, most of the rules are contained inside of the yellowish areas. I'll just flip a couple pages so you guys can get a sense for how it looks inside the rulebook, and then we'll find out how many pages in total this thing is. So currently we're at about 20 pages, flipping this to the very back, where there's a nice reference here of not only the game round, attributes, item types, game setup, ability icons, ability types, and game effects. You've also got map elements here, which is super handy, so you'll want to keep this face up while you're playing. In total, we've got about 32 pages if you include this back page. Next up, we have a token sheet inside the box. It has some health tokens here, some explorer tokens here, horror tokens here, chapter space through the center, and more health over here, as well as some destroyed door tokens along the side. As you can see, they're literally popping out as I touch them, so you're not going to have issue getting them out without destroying the tokens themselves. Now, this sheet is completely separate from a pack, which is underneath inside the box, all sealed together. So those could be Kickstarter exclusive. Again, this is the second printing coming from the Kickstarter, so that sheet might be separate from this sheet you're seeing here, or edition 2, but you can tell there's also punch boards we have to get through on this one. So I'm going to unwrap this. We'll go through through each of the different components. After taking off the wrap, the very first thing we're going to find is the chapter board, and this is a really high quality board. I'm really impressed by the actual build of this. So you can see there's recessed areas here for all of the different slots, 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the way through. You've got recessed areas all along the side here, and they are quite deep. It is very, very nice. And this is something that a lot more boards need to do in general for these games, where you have issues with things moving around. So everything in this scenario board or chapter board is going to be nicely slotted in and not going anywhere anytime soon. Flipping over to the opposite side, we got some nice H.P. Lovecraft inspired artwork here. Looks like a Cthulhu symbolism or mythos symbolism there. Moving right along, we have another token punch out. This one's upside down, but this is obviously a mix here of some regular tokens we've already seen, like the health tokens, door tokens, and the chapter space tokens, but now we're starting to see some characters in amongst here, as well as some of the different monsters. You're going to notice some of the names of the monsters line up with a lot of what you find in H.P. Lovecraft, which is another major element of this game. Flipping this token punch board over on the opposite side, we take a look at the reverse of these tokens, and you can go ahead and feel free to pause the screen if you'd like to look at these any further. And now we're going to move along to the next sheet here. I'll spin this around for you guys to see. So you can see we got things like a Thrall in here. We have the Spawn of Orn. We have the Spawn of Cthulhu. We've got more of these chapter space cards, more doors, more icons for health, and more, from what I understand these to be, is standees for the characters. Again, remember, there's no miniatures in this game. Everything is standees. So that is going to be a big plus for some people that want to save on space with some of these games. You're going to be able to with this one. And you'll see in a second the inside of the box insert is actually really well designed for all the cards as well. We'll get to that in a moment. Here's the very last punch board. It even has color out of space here, the rat thing, and a bunch of other tokens to go through, including some empty space or blank ones here. Now we're going to get into the actual tiles. These are double-sided tiles in the game. They look quite nice. They have a lot of detail down to the very fine nitty-gritty details in the artistry, so I really like that and appreciate it. I saw pictures of this prior to actually doing this unboxing you're watching right now. So I do have some experience in terms of what these tiles are going to look like, but I really like them up close in person when I'm seeing them now, more so than I saw them on video. So hopefully this is doing it justice. They definitely have quite a bit going on already preset inside of each of these tiles, and very interesting layouts as well. So different areas here that are kind of cornered off. You come to a dead end, you got staircases winding around, kind of gated or graded areas there. Flipping this over to the opposite side, see a completely different setting, totally different things to have to deal with going through that one. Here we have a bridge over a giant chasm, of which you probably don't want to fall through. Flipping this over to the opposite side, kind of another one that has a chasm or a giant canyon or hole straight through. And this one's quite cool looking. This next one I just saw when I flipped it over. That's pretty crazy. So this is as close to a Cthulhu tile as you can possibly get in terms of influence here. We've got like the nice mist and smoke. You've got the tentacles coming up. It looks absolutely creepy on all levels. Flipping this over to the opposite side, here's a completely different look. This one here's got, looks a little hot. Flipping that over to the opposite side. Oh, total shade. You'll notice that the colors are really popping too off these tiles. They're really interesting. We'll keep on moving through here. Very different for each one, which is quite nice. There's a lot of variation here. Like, look at this one. It's got like stairs going all the way around the outside, but then it's kind of got that seated area in the middle with stairs leading down through into the center area. That's quite cool indeed. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. That's a pretty cool one too. Like, look at this. That's some great detail on that one. Another one here. There's quite a few. I'm actually surprised how many tiles there are in this. I haven't been counting as I've gone along, but I'm going to guess we're probably around 12 or so. So that's pretty good when they're double-sided. I mean, there's a lot of... I can see why the replay value would be there for sure. And especially when you look at this, you also notice that each individual square is its own space. So you're talking like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm guessing it's 10 down on the opposite side as well. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, So, I mean, you're talking 100 different spaces inside of this thing. Of course, some of them are empty or blank because they're giant holes in the ground or stuff like that, but that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of moving, a lot of mobility throughout these different areas. And again, there's going to be areas, spots that are completely blocked off. You're not going to be able to walk into them, but there's still something happening there. So, I mean, there's a lot. Typically, tiles like this size only have like 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 4 space. So this is really cool to see the level of detail and craziness that they went to allow one tile to have this much really going on. Very, very nice indeed. So now we're coming to the very, very end here. I'm not sure what these are. It says Horror in the Ice Endgame. Okay, so that's an Endgame tile. That's pretty crazy. And this one is the Statue of Despair Endgame. That's another pretty wild one. So these are kind of like the finales for each one, I guess. And then the Beast Endgame. Very, very cool indeed. And here's your first look at the bottom of the box itself. Very nicely organized areas for all the cards to sit in, as well as the player boards right here in the middle. And again, the player boards are up to the exact same standard as that storyboard or chapter board we saw earlier. Again, being very, very thick, and everything being recessed to the point of being able to slot in the Explorer you're using, easily be able to pop it out, and also keep track of vitals and all that other good stuff. Flipping this over to the opposite side, similar artwork to what we've seen before, and there's a number of them inside this box here. Now, if I lift them, there's a total of 4. I'll move these out of the way, and as you can see underneath, we've got a dice bag as well as some dice to take a look at. So, the dice bag's pretty straightforward. We'll go ahead and flip that over to the opposite side. I'll have to double check to see if this is actually used for dice or for tokens, but I believe it is for the dice. The dice inside this game are actually beautiful. I'm going to take them out of the bag and show you them up close. I definitely thought these dice were worth showing you. As you can see here, we've got 3 low attack dice. These are the ones in white. High attack dice are the ones in black. The recharge die is in yellow. And then this one right here is called the game die. It's a 10-sided die, and you can see how beautiful the etchings are on this one as well. During the Kickstarter, there was the opportunity to pick up more of these dice if you want to have more sets of them, but they really went above and beyond just typical D6s, and for that I really appreciate it because it certainly fits the theme of the game, and they are gorgeous. Next, we have a bag of black Standees. Not too much really to talk about with these. We also have some clear ones right here. So 2 bags of those. And then we have some pegs. These nice pegs are going to be actually placed inside the vitals for the player boards as well as used on the storyboard. So let's go ahead and take a look at these up close. They're quite nice. Here's an up-close view of all the wooden pegs that came inside of that bag. Again, you'll be slotting these in on those recessed player boards and elsewhere. They look really, really nice, and this was a beautiful touch instead of just using standard flat tokens. This absolutely massive pile of chapter cards sits down in this bottom right hand corner. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I will show you some artwork from a couple of them because it is quite beautiful and very ominous and scary at the same time. Again, none of this is in order, but I wanted to show you just some of these chapter cards and their information on them and pictures. Flipping it over to the opposite side, I'll show you what they look like. I don't want to spoil much about the story itself, but I will show you one of the cards. Again, this is what you're going to want to explore on your own. You've got all your narrative text on the one side and what I believe to be kind of your game effects on the right hand side. There's iconography everywhere, which likely will help you to organize these together, but this deck is quite thick and I really don't want to spoil anything further. Now it's time to go through some monster cards here. Feel free to pause the screen as I go through these one at a time. I'll be moving through them quite quickly if you want to read the abilities on them. The artwork for sure is down the aggressive category, so this is probably a game for mature audiences. I haven't checked to see what the age limit is on this one, but if you're playing with younger kids, probably advise against that just based on how aggressive the artwork is, but it is beautiful. It really is. They did a fantastic job of it, and they made it a real big focal point of the actual card itself. It's taken up almost 75% of the card, and the actual abilities are still readable. The name is still readable. The iconography gels in really nice, as well as all the stats for the different monster. It certainly will give you a little bit of a fright going up against some of these things. They're pretty crazy looking. Again, with the H.P. Lovecraft angle in this thing, you're going to see some pretty weird looking creatures that you're not going to expect to see except in your worst nightmares. Oh my gosh, this thing is terrifying. So there's just so many cool cards in this deck. This next deck of cards is all about artifacts, and we've seen a lot about H.P. Lovecraft with the monsters just a few seconds ago. Now we're going to check out some artifacts that really have that steampunk vibe to them. So you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff like clubs and Gatling guns, but the style of the cards themselves and the items, these being artifacts, are going to fall into that steampunk vibe, and it's pretty cool. It's a very interesting combination for sure. So we're going to go ahead and just keep on moving through all these artifacts. These are very powerful artifacts that are usable inside the game. Feel free to pause the screen if you want to actually kind of soak one of these in terms of its artwork or ability. I'm trying my best not to get my thumb on any of the details, but that is difficult, seeing as exactly where my thumb wants to be seems to be where the icons actually are sitting. Bloodlust King. I think I skipped one there. Yes, I did. Some shackles. Stilts. Very cool stuff all the way down to the gas lamp. That last deck was all about artifacts. This one is all about weapons. There's over 50 different weapons in this deck, so you're going to see some pretty cool stuff here. Again, I'll do my best not to ruin it by covering up too much, but pretty awesome looking stuff. Wow, look at that thing. Now these are cool. I'm already very, very happy about the different style of the weapons in the game. It seems to definitely nail that steampunk vibe. Got your icons there. I really like the kind of sketch drawing going over on the side here. That's also really cool. You got the revolver. You can just go straight up with an axe, which is awesome. Circular saw. That's right, circular saw sounds like something would be totally useful in this H.P. Lovecraft world to just cut through all of the filth in the world. Even a brass umbrella. Look at that. Barbed whip. Catcher. Blunderbuss. Very, very cool indeed. A bow. So you got your ranged weapons, your melee weapons, hunting scopes, rails, arcane powder. Feel free to pause the screen if you want to see any of these up close, as I always mention. I'm going to go through these at a decent pace, and there could be the odd weapon that's hiding in amongst behind these things as I go through, so I'm trying my best to separate them as I go. Flamethrower. These are really cool. There's so many of them too. It's like so many different ways that you can kill these monsters as you go through the dungeons. It's pretty crazy. 50 something. I think there was 53, 56 of these things. Next we have the consumables. There are 30 consumables inside the game. Got a discharger here. Reflector. Oh, I just kind of want to like pause and look and really take these ones in because they're quite unique. Grenade. A telekinetic projector, a sphere, a charge. Yeah, the steampunk vibe is really coming through on these different items. It's really awesome. Gas bomb. More bombs. Combustor. Aerostat. A puzzle box. Kit. Sack. What's reminding me a lot of what I'm seeing here artist-wise on the side is what the loot cards look like inside of Too Many Bones. That's what I think of when I see the artwork with this kind of drawing with the steampunkish vibe. Even though the Too Many Bones doesn't really have a steampunk vibe, when I see this type of art style, it's the first thing I think of. Now, I thought I'd seen the last of the artifacts inside the box, but there actually was another deck in there, and included with these artifacts, which I didn't expect to see, maybe these are additional levels, maybe these are Kickstarter stretch goals, I'm not sure, but they are additional ones, plus there was apparel cards mixed in with them as well, and the apparel ones are definitely noted in the rulebook as being a part of the core experience. So I'll have to double check myself to see whether any of these consumables kind of land into a stretch goals bucket that was separated out, because they said there was only 35, and there's pretty much 35 in the set we already went through, plus this set right here. So hopefully you're enjoying this look at a crazy amount of different options when it comes to artifacts. So, I mean, hoping you can find all of these. Levers and whips. Do my best again to try to not cover up too much stuff, but it is quite tricky. There's pretty much useful information on all sides of these cards. A pipe. And that rounds it out, the music box. Next up, we have a deck of apparel cards. Let's flip them over and take a look. Got to go into the dungeon in style. You can have a reinforced suit, jet boots, stomper, an apron even. Some pretty cool stuff here so far. Trench coat, more boots, mail, levitators, grapplers, vest, memory mask. That's pretty cool. I like that. Clasp, cloak. They're pretty awesome. So many different options. It's crazy. I wasn't expecting this much in terms of variability between the different decks. They're quite large. There's quite a bit there. And especially like when you're just talking boots by themselves, there's multiple different kinds here. Headgear, gear to wear on your body, all that kind of stuff. Just nuts in terms of the amount of different options. Ends it off with a flare shield. Here are the Core Explorer event cards. You'll also see a deck right up there which has the same symbol as this. It might be a little foggy for you to see, but there might be more of them inside the box, so we'll get through them in a second. I'll show you these cards up close. Again, feel free to pause the screen if you actually want to read these particular cards. There's a whole bunch of them. It literally fills my hand right up, and I certainly cannot read off each of these. These are going to be different events that can potentially occur on your journeys through the game. None of these sound all that great in terms of what they're going to do to you, but maybe there are some good ones mixed in. Hand infection certainly does not sound like a positive thing. Echoes of death. There's a lot of this. Get phantom voice. There's a couple of these things that sound like they could have a good side to them. They look to be color coded as well, so that could be per scenario, or that could also be per what type of event you're actually getting. But remember, the backs of each of these cards are all the same. Every once in a while there appears to be a little bit of artwork on it when it needs to be, but in other cases it seems to be just mainly flavor text. So similar to the Explorer events that we just went through, I also want to show you the horror events. There's a whole bunch of these. They follow the same layout and look. Of course, these are all horror based, so they're definitely going to likely be in the category of being bad. And I'll flip through these at a relatively quick pace as there's quite a few of them. Feel free to pause if you want to actually read and get an idea or a taste for what these types of cards have in store for you. And now for the final deck of cards inside the box. Again, this could be stretch goal material, not sure, because this deck is actually a mix of the two different types of events we just went through. So there's all kinds of them to add in. So it kind of seems to me like it potentially could be. We'll go through each of these one at a time. Again, I won't be able to tell you which is which as we rip through, but you can surely go ahead, pause the screen, and read them as you have been doing along the way, if that interests you. There's a lot of these event cards in the game, so you're definitely going to have lots of replayability and variability in the cards, which is really cool that you can come back to it and have this many different type of events. And that's going to conclude the unboxing of Machina Arcana. I really hope this helps you get an idea as to what you can expect to find inside the second edition of this particular game, and helps you make an informed decision on whether this is a game for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.